subscribe to the channel. It's easy and fast.
Mariana was a fulfilled woman, married to Roberto for over 10 years and a devoted mother to 3 children, Lucas, 12, Sofia, 9, and Henrique, 6. Their marriage wasn't perfect, but it was solid, built on respect, affection, and companionship. Roberto was a present husband, always attentive to the family's needs, participatory, and a true partner in daily routines. Mariana, in turn, was organized, intelligent, and dedicated, balancing her role as a manager at a consulting firm, caring for her children, and managing the household. Her day started early, preparing breakfast, getting the kids ready for school, reviewing work tasks, and planning important meetings. The routine was intense, but she felt accomplished. There was a delicate balance between her professional and personal life, and though exhausted, Mariana cherished every moment with her family. Despite the stability and love, Mariana felt something was missing. The routine, though comfortable, had become predictable. Moments of excitement or novelty were rare, and daily life felt monotonous. It was in this context that Victor entered her life. He was an important client, charming, persuasive, and extremely confident. His frequent visits to the company led to small interactions that caught Mariana's attention. Their first contact was professional, but Victor had a remarkable ability to sense emotional vulnerabilities and explore hidden feelings. At first, Mariana received compliments about her professionalism, poise, and even subtle remarks about her appearance. She felt flattered, but maintained clear boundaries, aware of what giving in to temptation could mean. However, Victor's admiration began to awaken emotions she hadn't felt in a long time. His attention made her feel alive, appreciated, and desired in a way her marriage, though happy, no longer provided at that moment. Over time, professional meetings started to stretch. Quick meetings turned into long lunches. Coffees became hours-long conversations. Victor began sending messages outside work hours, filled with compliments and insinuations. Mariana felt a mix of excitement and guilt. Each message was an emotional dilemma, immediate pleasure versus future consequences. She knew she was nearing a dangerous line, but the temptation was strong. Despite the exhaustion and family responsibilities, Mariana found herself thinking more and more about Victor. Small escapes, lingering looks, and intimate phone conversations created growing tension. She tried to rationalize, "It's just a moment, I won't give in." But the attraction, desire, and the feeling of being deeply admired began to weaken her resistance. The internal conflict grew, and she found herself torn between the life she had and the one she could have with this forbidden excitement. The first sign that things were spiraling out of control came when Victor invited her to lunch at a discreet hotel under the pretense of discussing business. Mariana knew she should decline, but something inside her said this meeting would be different. She was aware that her marriage was worth more than any fleeting pleasure, but curiosity and desire led her to accept. Thus, a path opened to a series of decisions that would change her life forever. The lunch at that hotel marked the beginning of encounters Mariana never imagined she'd experience. Initially, she maintained a professional stance, but the conversation grew increasingly personal. Victor knew exactly how to touch her emotions, making her feel important, desired, and understood, in a way Roberto, though loving, hadn't in years. Each compliment, each gesture of attention made Mariana's heart race, and she felt a mix of excitement and fear for the first time. After that first meeting, Victor intensified his presence. Messages outside work hours became constant. He praised her appearance, commented on her intelligence, and suggested new business discussions, always with a seductive undertone. Mariana tried to resist, reminding herself of her children, Roberto, and her commitment to her family. But the temptation persisted. Each message brought a mix of pleasure and guilt, creating an emotional tension hard to ignore. The second meeting took place at a discreet cafe. Mariana arrived nervous, but Victor greeted her with a charming smile, making her hesitation vanish for a moment. The conversation lingered, and small touches on her hand or arm began to happen. Mariana felt her emotional barriers breaking down slowly. She tried to justify each gesture as harmless, but deep down she knew she was approaching a point of no return. In the following days, Mariana noticed her routine changing. Her focus at work waned. Her patience with her children and Roberto wore thin more quickly, and constant anxiety followed her. Guilt began to erode her mind. Yet the fleeting pleasure and the feeling of being intensely admired made her find excuses to keep in contact with Victor. Each meeting seemed harmless, but the sexual and emotional tension grew with each encounter. Mariana found herself imagining what would happen if they fully gave in to the attraction. She knew any step further could destroy her family, but at the same time, she felt alive in a way she hadn't in years. It was a battle between desire and reason, and Mariana was increasingly vulnerable. One Friday night, with Roberto away on a business trip, Mariana's internal conflict reached its peak. Victor suggested dinner at a discreet restaurant. Mariana hesitated but accepted. The night began with work-related conversation, but quickly turned intimate. Laughter, touches, and desire-filled glances dominated the atmosphere. Mariana realized that giving in at that moment would mean crossing a dangerous line, but the emotion won her over. That night she betrayed Roberto, not just physically but emotionally. In the days that followed, Mariana tried to resume her normal life. However, guilt weighed heavily. Every affectionate gesture from Roberto carried the memory of her mistake. Every look from her children brought reminders of what she had done. She became increasingly distracted and impatient, and small inconsistencies in her routine began to surface. Victor, sensing his emotional hold over Mariana, pressed for more meetings, heightening the tension and the risk of discovery. A web of lies began to grow. Mariana invented work meetings, outings with colleagues, and small excuses to justify her absences. The constant fear of being found out became a daily presence. The pleasure of meeting Victor was followed by sleepless nights and anxiety. Each message she received made her heart race, but also brought a deep pain, knowing she was betraying Roberto's trust and risking her family's stability. The beginning of the betrayal showed how small choices can trigger profound consequences. Mariana lived torn between the love she still felt for her husband and the excitement Victor sparked. The internal tension grew, and with each secret meeting, the possibility of a family disaster loomed closer. The seduction, which began as harmless compliments, turned into a force that would shake her entire life. The secret Mariana guarded so carefully began to slip through small details she couldn't control. A forgotten message on her phone, an unexplained time gap, a subtle change in behavior, all began to raise suspicions at home. Lucas, perceptive as always, was the first to notice something off. He found a message from Victor that Mariana forgot to delete. Though he didn't fully grasp the situation, the boy sensed something was wrong. Innocent questions arose, and Mariana had to improvise quick answers, leaving gaps that fueled the children's suspicions. Soon after, Sophia began noticing changes in her mother's behavior. Small signs, like sudden impatience, distracted glances, and evasive responses, caught her attention. Even at her young age, she felt the tension in the air. Enrique, the youngest, didn't understand the nuances, but sensed the heavy atmosphere at home. The family harmony began to fracture, and Mariana, despite trying to keep up appearances, felt the emotional weight of her mistake spreading to the entire family. Meanwhile, Roberto started noticing inconsistencies he couldn't ignore. Unanswered questions, odd schedules, and sudden mood swings led him to suspect something. He wasn't naturally suspicious, but he knew his wife deeply. Every unusual gesture fed his doubts, and the fear of losing the trust built over years began to surface. The confrontation became inevitable. Roberto decided to wait for the right moment to question Mariana, seeking direct and honest answers. He didn't want rash accusations, but needed to understand the reason behind his wife's strange behavior. Mariana, meanwhile, felt the walls closing in. The guilt gnawed at her mind, and the tension was almost unbearable. She knew she could no longer hide the truth. The breaking point came on a quiet night when Roberto returned from a business trip earlier than Mariana expected. He noticed the tension in the air, her evident nervousness, and her evasive glances. That was the moment he chose to confront her directly. The conversation started with simple questions, but quickly grew intense. Mariana, between tears and sobs, confessed the entire truth. The secret meetings with Victor, the seductive messages, the thrill, and the transgression she had committed. The emotional impact was devastating. Roberto felt betrayed, not just by the physical act, but by the breach of emotional trust built over years. He experienced anger, sadness, and disbelief. The shock was profound, and his perception of their perfect family life began to crumble before his eyes. Mariana, on the other hand, felt vulnerable, humiliated, and deeply regretful. Every word that left her mouth carried guilt and fear. The children, though young, sensed something serious was happening. The atmosphere of tension became palpable. Lucas, Sophia, and Enrique felt that something had changed with their parents, even if they didn't fully understand the details. The once safe and welcoming home environment became charged with conflicting emotions, silences, and worried glances. Victor, who initially seemed charming and persuasive, vanished from Mariana's life when he realized the situation was becoming too complicated. Reality hit hard. Mariana realized she had lost more than just her husband's trust. She had jeopardized the emotional stability of her entire family. The regret was overwhelming, and she began to grasp the depth of her mistake. The impact of the betrayal extended to every aspect of family life. Mariana had to deal with guilt and shame, while Roberto faced the pain of being deceived. The children felt confused and insecure. Every interaction at home carried a silent tension, and the once predictable life was now marked by fear, mistrust, and regret. This moment showed that betrayal doesn't just affect the couple, but the entire family network. Trust, once broken, creates cracks that spread, impacting every relationship, routine, and emotion. Mariana and Roberto were forced to face reality head-on, with no room for escapism. Rebuilding the family became an immense challenge, requiring dialogue, patience, and deep reflection. After the confession, Mariana realized nothing would ever be the same. The atmosphere at home was tense, filled with suspicious glances, prolonged silences, and questions with no easy answers. Roberto, though emotionally devastated, tried to stay calm for the children. He knew he couldn't explode in front of them, but every gesture, every word, carried the weight of the betrayal. Mariana felt the pain emanating from her husband in every look, and the guilt became almost unbearable. The days that followed were marked by a painful silence between the two. Conversations were short, restrained, and every interaction seemed to test boundaries. Mariana tried to approach, to apologize, but Roberto responded with coldness, a protective coldness, a defense mechanism to cope with the shock and disappointment. The family routine continued, but with constant tension. The children sensed something was wrong. Lucas, in particular, noticed the distant looks between his parents and asked things like, "Mom, are you okay?" Or "Why does Dad seem sad?" The effects of the betrayal began to affect Mariana physically and emotionally. She suffered from insomnia, constant anxiety, and deep guilt. Every message from Victor, even old ones, came to mind with painful intensity. She realized she had lost control over her emotional life, and the thrill she sought had turned into suffering. Mariana had to face the consequences of her choice, confronting not only Roberto, but also the reflection of her own mistakes. Roberto, meanwhile, grappled with conflicting emotions. His love for Mariana still existed, but the trust had been shaken. Every affectionate gesture was met with suspicion. Every conversation carried painful memories. He needed to decide whether he wanted to rebuild the marriage or if the betrayal was an irreparable break. Meanwhile, the children continued to observe silently, absorbing every sign of tension, unsure how to react. The confrontation intensified when Roberto demanded detailed answers. Mariana, in tears, explained every step, every meeting, every message. Honesty was necessary for Roberto to even begin to understand. But the confession brought more pain than relief. The love remained, but it was now accompanied by deep emotional scars. Mariana also realized the social impact of her betrayal. Friends and family, though unaware of all the details, noticed changes in her behavior. Shame and guilt became constant, affecting her professional and social life. Victor, the client who had sparked it all, disappeared when he saw the situation's complexity. Mariana was left alone with her choices and regrets. The consequences were felt at every level of family life. The once harmonious routine now required caution. Every trip, work meeting, or outing needed explanation. Mariana and Roberto began couples therapy to try to rebuild trust. Mariana also attended individual sessions, seeking to understand her own desires and weaknesses. She learned that fleeting satisfaction didn't justify the harm caused to those she loved, and that betrayal leaves lasting marks. The impact on the children was silent but profound. Lucas and Sofia felt the tension, and Henrique, though young, sensed his mother's mood shift. Mariana had to double her efforts to maintain the family's emotional security. She committed to regaining everyone's trust, knowing it would be a long and delicate process. This period of confrontations and consequences served as a painful lesson for Mariana. She realized that the momentary attraction and the feeling of being desired weren't worth the emotional pain, the loss of trust, and the impact on her children. Every decision she made had brought irreversible consequences, showing that betrayal doesn't just affect the couple, but the entire family structure. Mariana began to understand that rebuilding would require time, patience, and total dedication. The marriage could survive, but it would be a different version of the life she knew. Intimacy and trust would need to be rebuilt from scratch, and every gesture, every word, would carry the weight of the past. For the first time, Mariana understood that happiness doesn't lie solely in fleeting excitement, but in emotional stability, trust, and enduring love. Over time, Mariana and Roberto realized they could, albeit slowly, rebuild their marriage. The journey wasn't easy. Every step required effort, patience, and constant communication. Mariana committed to complete transparency, sharing every detail of her routine and opening up emotionally in ways she never had before. Roberto, still hurt, sought to understand the depth of the betrayal, but also worked to forgive and keep the family together for the children. Couples therapy became a safe space to express feelings, anger, regret, and doubts. Mariana learned to identify the triggers that led her to succumb to temptation, and Roberto, though heartbroken, recognized that forgiveness required daily rebuilding of trust. The sessions were intense, sometimes painful, but always necessary. Each one helped repair broken bonds and strengthen their understanding. The children slowly felt the changes. Lucas, Sofia, and Henrique noticed the atmosphere at home transforming. Small moments of attention, shared playtime, and honest conversations began to replace the tension that once dominated the household. Mariana doubled her care for the children, ensuring they felt loved and secure, while Roberto, though cautious, sought to reconnect emotionally with each of them. Gradually, the family began to regain a sense of normalcy. Mariana also faced deep internal reflection. She recognized that the betrayal wasn't just a momentary lapse, but a warning about her own vulnerabilities. She learned that fleeting excitement could never replace emotional stability, mutual respect, and family responsibility. Each regret helped her grow and better understand her desires and limits. Victor, the client who started it all, became a painful memory, a reminder of the price impulsivity can exact. Her relationship with Roberto changed forever. Emotional intimacy became more open, but also more cautious. Every affectionate gesture was cherished. Every word carried deeper meaning. Mariana began expressing her gratitude and love more explicitly, and Roberto started seeing not just his wife's mistake, but her courage in facing the consequences and working to rebuild the family. Trust, though still fragile, began to grow again, brick by brick, with patience and dedication. The experience transformed Mariana into a more conscious, responsible, and attentive person. She realized that family life and true love require constant commitment, honesty, and transparency. The seduction and temptation that once seemed irresistible lost their power in the face of what could have been destroyed. Mariana came to value every moment of affection, every honest conversation, and every demonstration of trust. Roberto, too, learned from the experience. He understood that, though the betrayal was painful, the strength of love and family could overcome mistakes, provided both were willing to work on rebuilding. He became more attentive, expressive, and patient, helping create a safe and welcoming environment for the children and his wife. In the end, Mariana and Roberto managed to rebuild their life together, but in a different way from what they knew. There were scars, painful memories, and a constant awareness of the value of trust. The experience made it clear that momentary choices can have profound and lasting consequences. Mariana learned that true happiness lies not in fleeting excitement, but in daily care, dedication to family, and the value of love built over years of togetherness. The episode served as a life lesson. Regret, reflection, and rebuilding can heal, but they require courage, sincerity, and patience. Mariana and Roberto, united by love and commitment to their children, stayed together, more aware of the value of fidelity, responsibility, and the importance of always choosing family over any momentary temptation.
Subscribe to the channel. It's easy and fast.